Wednesday, April 24th, 2024, 12 o'clock commission meeting to order. Roll call, please. Jeff? Present.
Monty is there. Present. Ryan Johnson.
Present.
Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? 3 votes for, 0 against. Need a motion to approve the minutes from March 6, 2024.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? 3 votes for, 0 against. Cass County Codes and Zoning Department application number 3083. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Valerie, staff report, please.
This was heard by the planning board on March 26th of this year. The vote was in favor with 3 in favor, 2 against. We did have 1 absent that night. There was 3 people that spoke in favor of the application and 8 people that spoke against it, all with the same general concerns. The 2 planning board members that were against the application just felt like the future plans may not fit that area. The applicants did or do have a handout that they would like to give you guys this morning. Other than that, I have nothing to add, other than this is just for the special use for the potential community sewer system. Right.
Okay, thank you, Valerie. Commissioners, do you have a question for Valerie before she leaves?
So specifically, this is dealing with sewer alone.
Sewer alone.
So I've been out there to the site. I've talked to people who live around there. I've talked to the developers, you know, all about the air park. But this specifically is not about the air park. This is about the sewer. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
This is a process they have to go through to even get to the point to see if the sewer can be approved through DNR. Is that correct?
Yes,
They would have to have it.
DNR and Missouri Department of Natural Resources, as well as Missouri Public Service Commission, because they will be their own utility if it gets to that point.
And the county would not be responsible for that sewer district.
Correct.
Any other questions right now? You might stay up here close, Valerie, because you might be back up here. Thank you very much. So at this time, I'm going to open the podium for anyone that would like to speak for or against thing about application 3083. So if you'd like to speak for or against it, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. We'll do one at a time. There'll be plenty of time here for everyone to come up and speak. So.
Hi, my name is Susan Huffman. I live at 509 Mark Lane in Belton. My concern is that single piston engine planes currently use avgas or leaded fuel. The FAA and the AOPA is reporting that unleaded fuel will not be readily available until 2030. The approved Arrowhead Air Park septic system to approve it system now is in essence giving approval for lead pollution to potentially damage the health of the residents of Belton and surrounding communities, but especially the 4,400 plus children in the Belton School Complex, less than 4 air miles from this proposed site. There is also no commitment at this time that leaded gas will not continue to be available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person would like to speak for or against it, please state your name and address, whether you're for or against it.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Perinsky. I live at 20007, did I say 307 South Prospect Avenue. I live directly across the street from where the proposed aero park is going to be installed. My concern is I live directly across the street from the aero park that's going to be installed. I have 2 ponds in my backyard. The drainage from the aero park will drain directly into my ponds. I have 4 horses and 2 donkeys that drink out of those ponds. I garden. I just recently retired from the state of Missouri as a probation and parole officer. I want to enjoy my land, and so my concern is it's not going to be healthy for my family and I, or my animals. So, thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Next person would like to speak for or against application 3083. Please step forward, state your name and address, whether you're for or against.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Jeremy McCracken. I live at 19615 South Cable Road, Belton, Missouri. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for folks to make the March meeting. Some of us work during the day, so a Wednesday at 12 o'clock is not necessarily a member of our schedule, so I was not able to come to that one. I'm here today. I'm in the wastewater industry. I know quite a bit about it. Proposing the BNR is great. I'm sure it's going to do a lot for you. BNR is wonderful technology. But from the outset, I really just have a problem with this project with the air park. Whether or not the development goes forward without an air park, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But the idea of having all of those claims over our homes, our communities, the impact that it has to our property values, the potential impact that it's going to have to our environment, a private ran sewer system is fraught for peril. I'm just going to tell you that. We've incorporated several of them on the Kansas side. They don't get the type of oversight that they need, especially when you're talking about BNRs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Next person would like to speak for or against application 3083. Please step forward. State your name, address.
My name is John Ryan. My address is 3000 Fish Street. I've prepared some papers to give you gentlemen to follow along. This is not a septic system in a vacuum. What you've been given here is arrowhead part diagram that no particular relevance to the actual ground. That's why I brought these documents for you. The first page does have each of these in a much smaller version, but whether or not that's going to be adequate for you to see what I'm talking about, I brought the various documents. This is not one flat, level piece of land as demonstrated on this document. This is 156 soybean field that was farmed by the Everglades. In fact, it's still going to be farmed by the Everglades in its current status. What we have here, I suggest to you gentlemen, is an inexperienced developer who bought 156 acres. He bought it originally to build 4 or 5 homes for he and his friends, and they were going to try and have airplanes there, all reasonable. But now, we have, as this document will show, from various articles to the Telegraph to the Heartland magazine. Originally, they told Jim Edwards, talked to Jim, four guys are going to get together. It's not approved by the county on an airport to build land. There are issues with this property in the west end. There's big drainage, and down the middle of the property it's unusable. You'll hear perhaps a comment that, well, what we're going to do here is no worse than having a soybean field because drainage and soybean. I mentioned that to Jimmy, so that's why you have terracing. So that you don't have water runoff. But you will have here in this development serious water runoff because of concrete. Now, in the documents you have there, you will see that there is a 161-foot water tower by the Cass Water District number 2, which is
I've included pictures of the water tower in there. I've included some pictures from the road to also demonstrate that this isn't what is diagrammed there. This is a 155 acres soybean field with a lot of issues of falling off. There is a ridge that would appear to be in the middle, this being Prospect. This being Prospect, this being the water tower over here. As you can see from this diagram, which has more detailed geography, distances, there's a pond here, there's a tree line here, there's another pond here. This is, as you gentlemen know, a half a mile. Half a mile is what, 1,240 feet? They say they want to put in, 2,000 plus feet. They want to put in a 3,000 foot runway. The only way you can put in a 3,000 foot runway is diagonally, one way or the other, because you don't have enough feet here. I put in there for you a comparison of other runways, other airports. You have one other airport in Cache County. That airport is, the facts on it are in that document. My recollection is it has a 4,000 foot runway. I put in a couple more for you. Bates County, Clinton, and those runways listed in the documents I gave you vary from 4,500 feet to 5,000 feet. And yet they want to put in a 3,000 foot runway for potentially 94 airplanes. The documents I've given you from the airnav.com site demonstrate that I think the maximum number of aircraft at any one of them, which is at the Harrisonville one, is like 36 aircraft. And they have maybe only 5 to 6 takeoffs each day. The other airports have less than that, but they may also service a flight school and serve an ag development, so that increases it. The Butler Airport has no control tower. Runway is 4,000 feet, aircraft base is 23. So what they're asking you to do is authorize the largest airport in Cache County. Something almost triple the size of the only other airport in Cache County, as well as even larger size of our adjacent county. You will notice from the diagrams up there that on the southwest end of the travel land is the Cache County Water Supply District water tower. It's 161 feet in height. I don't know what measurement you'll use for stories on a building. You use 10 stories, that's a 16-story high building. Let's just say you want it to be 16 stories. That's a 10-story building. You can look through the other nav.com deals and they will talk about obstructions. Nobody has obstruction of a 10-story building or a 16-story building there. They'll point out that there may be some trees at one end or another. So while this may be a dream of the developers to put in this runway in 94 homes, the reality is it's not happening with the contours of this property. It's also, as many of these people would say, clearly not in accordance with what the neighborhood is. This is a neighborhood of 10, 20, and larger tracts. This is not a neighborhood of what might be 1 acre tracts at best to put in 94 houses. especially because of all the topography and the gullies that are there. You'll be able to tell from these diagrams as you look closer that there is a ridge on here, but there's a serious drop off here, serious drop off here, even more serious drop off over here. Photographs I put in there, while they're not overheads, I wish I had that to demonstrate to you. They will demonstrate that from the road, how high the water tower is, even from a distance over on Prospect. It will demonstrate to you that the rise of the roads follow along with the rise and descent of the property.
Okay, John, I appreciate you sharing this. This is just for the sewer portion of this. There's going to be opportunity, if it gets past the sewer, to come and speak about all this other things. I've gotten several emails. I appreciate you taking the time on this. I think there's a lot of people here who'd like to talk too.
And I only, if I might make one comment.
Sure.
I understand that's the approach they're taking, is we want to put in a sewer system, and we want to put in a sewer system for 155 acre soybean field. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What they really want to do is put in a sewer system to service 94 houses. And I think, I'd suggest we should look beyond just the idea, oh, please let us apply for a septic system to service 155 acres.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Anyone else would like to speak for or against application 3083? Please step forward, state your name and address.
Marlon Shipley.
I'm sorry, what's your first name? Martin?
Shipley at 1901 South Prospect. I'm right next door to Vanessa. I think John hit on it a little bit about the ridge going at a diagonal between northwest to southeast. Within that east part of that ridge where the runway's supposed to go, there's two draws that comes down through there. The north end of that draw, or the north end of the property there on that draw, it has real bad washouts when it rains more than 2 or 3 inches. The other one is grass, but there still is a lot of wash coming out from the top of the ridge. Okay? Both of those drainage areas run through my property, okay? Which eventually goes into Vanessa's, which eventually goes into the Grand River in the Truman. Okay? I have had the creek behind me overflow because all the water coming down off the north end of the land we're talking about. Okay? I'm not sure how I'm not smart enough to understand how the sewer system is going to be put in, what kind of drainage there's going to be. Supposedly it's supposed to be pretty much in the top layer of the land. But whenever you start putting in 94 potential residences in there, and the land slopes so much from the top of the ridge to the east, I don't know how it's going to keep it running over. I also know that the county has said they're not going to be responsible for any of the waste that contaminates the creeks or whatever. And I just think we're just playing ping pong. I'm not sure.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I would agree with you. I don't know that much about sewer districts either. Next person would like to speak for application 3083. Please step forward, state your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Martin Apatow. I'm at 2105 South Skyline Lane, Spring Hill on the Kansas side. So I'm a pilot, and my wife and I have had a dream of living on an airpark for a long time. So we were actually excited to hear about this development. We're deposit holders in case a lot becomes available. Hopefully the project gets approved from our perspective, of course. one of the things, as far as the sewer system specifically, to try to be on topic here, we actually are pretty happy with the design that we see. One of the things we've looked at with different acreages is having to have our own septic system and all the maintenance that comes with it, especially having like open ponds, doesn't really appeal to us all that much. So from our perspective, when you can't hook up to a city sewer system, this is the next best thing. It looks to me like it's been professionally designed. It was vetted pretty well during the planning board phase, and they asked for more information, and the developer and engineer brought that back. So I'm an engineer, not a septic or sewer system engineer, but as far as I can tell, the best practices have been applied to designing that system. And I guess just from the perspective of the other discussions here, I have a lot of things to say about the air park and aircraft use of it. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what an air park really is, probably because most people have never been to one. But I wanted to postpone that to the special use permit discussion when that's what's on the agenda. So I hope that that's the right thing to do here, because if the sewer system approval is contingent on addressing those things, then we would need to know that now and not later. But I guess I'll say one other thing. As far as the sewer goes specifically, they're probably the only thing that I've heard that might be somewhat relevant to that is people have concerns about contamination or pollution or whatever. And again, in my experience with residential air parks, probably the 7 or 8 that I've been at and have friends living at, most of them have epoxy floors that are so clean you can eat off of them. And, you know, if you have the slightest little leak in your, drip from your fuel tank, as a pilot, you're going to get that fixed. Nobody who lives in a development like this is going to be like pouring buckets of fuel or oil down the drain or in the ditch out back. So I just don't think that's a real concern either, as far as contamination for the sewer. So anyway, my request would be, if it looks like it's an adequate design, and it does to me for the 94 lots that are proposed, the sewer's for the people, doesn't care what kind of machines are in the buildings, then I would request that we get it approved and move on to the next phase where we can discuss all the other concerns. If there is a problem with it, as a potential future resident, nobody cares more about that than me, because I'll be living with the mess if it leaks or blows up or stinks or looks bad or whatever. So I want it to be a good sewer system too. I'm not trying to sweep anything under the rug here. If there's a problem with the design, let's talk about what that is so we can get it fixed. This isn't rocket science. It's pretty well established technology to build a sewer system for communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Next person like to speak for or against application 3083. Please step forward, state your name and address.
Hi, I'm going to bring you a couple more visuals for your binder.
Thank you.
My name is Peggy Bruce. I live at 2000 East 195th Street.
Thank you, Peggy.
I know we're here to talk about the sewer system, but this morning, I just wanted to show you what my driveway looks like where it meets the road. Okay? So as we talk about sewers, as we talk about development, there's a lot of infrastructure that is at risk here. Okay? Practically 180 degrees opposite the prior speaker. I lived in my home for 36 years. I plan to live here 36 more. And I'm like a lot of my neighbors where we have put down roots and plan to be here a long time. We love it out here. We love the open spaces, seeing the sunrise and the sunset, the peace and quiet, the birds, the wildlife, etc. That's the whole point of living out in the country, is to be away from high-density development, let alone high-density development with airplanes on it, okay? We have, as Cass County residents, I think a lot of risk to bear if this sewer goes forward. Primarily because, as the air park you know, if things go wrong, it's not on you. It gets kicked down the road to the state, to the Natural Resources Department, et cetera, et cetera. If something goes wrong with the sewer system, it could take months, if not years, to resolve itself. Because quite a bit of time has to go past to try to get whoever the company is managing it to fix it. If and when that doesn't happen, then it gets passed on, passed on, passed on. During all that time, all of us residents are left holding the bag. We're bearing the brunt of that smell and that waste and that pollution. As you've been told, there are a lot of spring-fed lakes and ponds right around this airport. The pictures I gave you are of the pond on my property. I live just to the north of the runway, right past the crop field. And on my little pond, you can see large flocks of birds there all the time. So not only do I have wildlife that I enjoy and want to protect, I also have the current concern of those birds taking flight and running into an airplane and having a crash. I know that's not concerned with the sewer, but as the prior speaker said, there are a whole lot of larger issues that we need to bring to bear with this development overall. And it sure feels backwards to me for someone to come in and promote a development by saying, let us do this, we'll tell you more details later. We don't have all the details worked out yet. We'll tell you more later, and oh, by the way, you're not responsible if anything goes wrong. Somebody else has to bear the brunt, which really means us residents bearing that brunt. Okay? So lots of risk, I think, in terms of the sewer itself and other elements surrounding the park. We also have all read about what happened at Olsen Acres and the fact that $3 million of Cass County money had to go to repair a private sewer system. So things do go wrong. And it's not like there's a whole lot of companies around to manage these kind of systems. They may be located in St. Louis or Kentucky or out of state, who knows? What's their responsiveness? What's their accountability? From an accountability standpoint, I go back to the residents of this air park. There's close to 100 homes on 156 acres with 100 airplanes and 100 hangars, really high density. I'm expecting a whole lot more traffic, a whole lot more fire risk, all of that coming into play, let alone with the sewer. But I think, too, that we've got a burden. Us residents with our property value, what's this going to do to it? Knowing that there's a private sewer system on a 156-acre development with the largest airport in Cass County, what's that doing to our property value? We've lived here a long time. We've invested in our homes and properties. That is our primary resource. That's how we're going to fund our retirement, is with that property. And I think there are many aspects of this development which will have a very negative impact on everyone, not even just adjacent to the air park, but way up to the north. Think of 150 highway, life patterns coming up and around, noise, pollution, et cetera, et cetera. So feeling that their luxury is our burden. That's really what I think it boils down to. This is a misfit for the county. It's a misfit in terms of we're trying to put a sewer system in where septic is the norm. Again, like other people have said, I'm not against all development. Very reasonable development is perfectly acceptable. Larger acre lots, septic systems, etc. Just not such a concentration with a private sewer system, with a bunch of airplanes that are managed by a homeowners association. There's no tower, there's no larger government entity, there's nobody overseeing this. We're not talking about, what color of beige am I allowed to paint my house. We're talking about airplanes, 100+ airplanes on a 3,000-foot runway, which, by the way, is long enough to handle jets. So who's to say what rules are enforced? Who's to say what any punishment or retribution or reaction or ramifications there are for people who don't follow these rules? Again, this is the first step, getting the sewer approved, I know. But the whole theme of this thing has been, well, we don't have everything nailed down yet. We'll tell you more later after you approve this step. And that just feels like the wrong way to go about doing things. This feels like a misfit for our county. So many residents are against it. And I hope and pray that you will vote it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Appreciate it. Anyone else would like to speak for or against application 3083?
Take this home with me.
Okay.
My name is Craig Cox. I live at 145 105 East 203rd Street. I'm within 1,000 feet of the proposed development. I retired from over 40 years in the construction industry, which extended of commercial superintendent. I've worked in sewers, I've built them, I've repaired them. At one time, I was a licensed installer in Cass County. The system that has been proposed by the developer is about as good as we could ever expect to have. I'm not for the development, but if we have to have some sort of a development there, we need a sewage system that works, which that is, it's expandable, it's invisible, nobody can see it. The problems you normally have with sewage systems is effluent runoff, which a pressure drip system does not have, and you have things in your sewer system that shouldn't be there because they've been flushed down the toilet. The grinder pump in each home eliminates that problems. The problems are eliminated. It's monitored by an outside company who's totally stands to have to pay for any problems if there ever is any.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate that. Anyone else would like to speak for or against application 3083?
Matt Brown, 1401 East 195th Street. So we're just northwest, touching this particular property, and I'll echo some of the same concerns that Peggy brought up as well. You know, we have a large lake on the property, and I really don't believe that people would just pour oil or gas on the ground. And a lot of faith in folks, but it's an accident that can happen where there's an accidental spill of fuel or oil that we're concerned about, potentially, causing impact to our lake as well, and of course our neighbors. And then secondarily, I think the long-term prospects of the sewage system. I worry about a company, going out of business, or there's not maybe enough homes as part of the homeowners association to actually support it if there are issues with the system as well. And inevitably, problems do happen, ground shifts, and so I guess it's really the long-term concern as to whether or not it could be properly maintained by the homeowners association, and then of course the burden being potentially felt by the county themselves. So definitely consider as well. And I'll bring up the noise. I think that likely the runway would be, the flights would be literally right over our property, is my understanding. So that's a certainly concern. I know we're not addressing that today, but I just want to raise that as well. Okay,
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak for application 3083? Please step forward, state your name and address.
My name is Steve Kraus. I live at 19306 South Prospect. I'm opposed to this. I have a question for you guys. I'm assuming that this ground is zoned agricultural, like some of my property there. And I think it's your responsibility for any variance to it. I know the ground is sold and there something, but at some point, it's your responsibility to integrate between what's there and what is being constructed, correct? Why are we listening to this for something that's zoned for agriculture? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else would like to speak for or against application 3083? Please step forward, state your name and address.
Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Gerald Wisdom, the president of the Mount Pleasant Fire Township Board. I'm here to speak against the whole operation. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot to say with that. It's going to cost a lot of taxpayer money. It's going to cost a lot of road tax. It's going to cost a lot of other issues, a lot of animals, wildlife. It's going to come into, one of the gentlemen spoke, said that it, fuel and stuff. That is our concern, that this stuff gets into the septic system and it is a problem. We don't know what's there. Fire response, that if there's an emergency, we don't know what we're dealing with. Also, with the fuel in the aircraft is high octane. A crash or a spill out on this runway would still be a detrimental to the surrounding area. Again, also, we've looked at some of the tax increases. We've looked at the cost of the insurance for everybody that lives anywhere close. The insurance rating is going to go way up. Our response for fire apparatus to get there is considerably a long time. We have a mutual aid out of Cleveland, and if we got any mutual aid for assistance and coming out of Stillwell, they can be trapped by train. We may be looking 15 or more minutes to get help get there. It is zoned right now, I understand it's agricultural. I would have no problem if it was residential only. The airfield and some of the other things do upset us. And the cost. It's going to cost the tax district probably a 3-year period before we would see any money to help pay for that extra fire protection. I'm trying to take into consideration of the time frame of building, this county assessment, and the district with its amount of money. So we are asking that you reconsider it if they are interested to put a normal septic tank system for each house, which is impossible because it takes 3 to 5 acres. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald, I appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak for or against application 3083, please step forward, state your name and address.
Michelle Worrell, I live at 1009.
Michelle?
Rochelle.
Rochelle.
Worrell, 1009 East 190th Street. I did live at 1401 where Mr. Brown lives now. So I live next door. So I kept hearing at the 2 previous meetings with the zoning board, we're letting them get the cart before the horse. We gotta let them get the cart before the horse so they can move forward. I'm asking you why. That's, to me, sounds like, well, let's not make them follow procedure. Because they haven't put forth a full plan. When Mr. Wilcox talked at the first zoning meeting, he was saying 95 or so luxury homes. And then he backed off and it was like half of that in luxury homes at the second meeting, and then airport hangar apartments, which is I think what we're going to end up with, is a bunch of airport hangars and apartments. We're talking about a 100-plane airport. And this sewer plan is totally fictional. It is the sewer plan for an imaginary development that we haven't really seen. It's a sewer plan that says, oh yeah, we have 95 luxury homes. No, we need a sewer plan for an airport and the houses and the hangars, and we haven't seen that. So if you put this forward, they're more than putting the cart before the horse. They are violating everything that we need from you. We need your protection, because they tried to, from the get-go, these builders were trying to go around you from the get-go with the petition to become a village, bringing their high-dollar lobbyists to Jeff City. They don't want your input on this. We need you to follow procedure. Make them cross the T's, dot the I's, because we're not talking about the septic system, a community system for a neighborhood or a subdevelopment or subdivision. I think most of the neighbors, if you want to put houses on there, we would be fine. They're putting in an airport. We need a sewer design for an airport and a housing development and hangars and all of the concrete that goes with that, and we haven't seen it. So if you think Olson Acres was bad, I think what you're doing is creating an Olson Acres for the people that follow you in a decade or so to deal with. And it's going to include an airport, not just a housing development. So I would ask you, please, say no. I'm a business owner. I've made bad business decisions. I'd like to say everything I've done has been right. It's not. Maybe these fellas made the wrong decision in buying this bean field. They had a contingent contract. Maybe they should have followed through on that contingency before they closed. They had an opportunity to do that, and they said, screw it. We're just gonna go around the county however we can, and now here they are, and they've been passed forward without a concrete plan. They have an imaginary plan, and I think we need to say, go back to the drawing board, give us a real plan, and then we can look at the sewer design, and then we can look at what needs to happen, and look at zoning first. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. Anyone else like to speak for or against application 3083? Please step forward, state your name and address.
Good afternoon. Nice to see you all again. Appreciate the opportunity to present our application. Craig Wilcox. I live at 2130 Loma Road in Smithville, Missouri. And our designated representative of this application is Steve Walker. Go and give your...
Steve Warder, 6127 Northwest Pine Ridge Circle, Parkville, Missouri.
The question of the order of application was, as you know, dictated to us, so we're just following the directions. We do hope that this application does get approved, so we have the opportunity to address all those concerns that people brought up about the air park itself. So some opening comments. This community sewer system will support a 94 lot subdivision. It will be completely self-contained with no off-site effluent and totally funded start to finish by the developers. We will not approve this. The Missouri Department of Natural Resources will approve this. We will not manage this. A licensed public utility, we will hear from in just a moment, will manage this facility. We feel this septic system is a triple win. For the homeowners, it's a single standardized system without homeowners having to go out and get their own permits for septic tanks, determining acreage, soil percolation, et cetera, We're going to take care of all of that. All they do is buy the lot and they get the grinder pump and a system. For the neighbors, it's also a win because there'll be zero impact on the neighbors, zero effluent off-site, and as Mr. Cox stated, about the best system you can get for a development like this without connection to a municipality sewer system. And I think it's also a win for the county because there is zero risk. There have been some concerns that you're passing the buck by doing it this way. We don't feel that way at all. We think this is an appropriate reaction to the previous septic failure in, can't remember the name of the facility, but this is putting the monkey on our back so that that doesn't happen to Cass County. There is zero risk now or in the future. There'll be no installation cost for the county, no operations cost, and the Public Service Commission will handle any kind of failure or default of that public utility that's appointed. So I'm going to hand it off now to Steve Walker, and he's going to discuss the sewer system itself.
Thank you, Craig. The system that we're designing here is for approximately 51 estate lots and 43 residential lots, 43 major lots, as we call them. So that's a total of 94 lots, but the total bedrooms is what Cass County bases their flow. Basic flow is 150 gallons per house. So by the time you add in bedrooms, that's 290 bedrooms. Using that number, 150 gallons is 43,500 gallons per day of flow that would be going to the system, to the overall system. By the way, we are going to do this in phases, so there would be some areas that we develop and we'll develop as we go forward. We're not going to do the whole side at one point. And if you look over where Craig is at now, on that drawing, that depicts if we did all four quadrants, had the full development, that green area would be where the lateral field area would be in the holding tanks and the system there. This would all be pumped there by a grinder pump and a force main system. So you have an enclosed system. advantage there compared to gravity systems. There isn't no infiltration from rainwater or gutters or something else that somebody would connect to that. So it'd just be what was coming from the sewer system within each individual house. So if you take a general number based on the soil types, and we'll be doing some final evaluation of the soil types, it's about, you need about 2.22 square feet per gallon of area to be able to treat the sewage for each, for each gallon. And so with our areas there, we have individual trenches, and then you have to have space in between the trenches just for the areas so it doesn't intermingle with itself. And so that would require approximately between all four quadrants 193,000 square feet of area. And if you look at that area there, that's what we have there is 193,000. If you go to the next exhibit there, Craig, with adding the purple and the areas otherwise, that could expand to more than twice what is required for available lateral field area. So in other words, we have the area as per design, and if something would happen to change the design or we would need more, we obviously have that area too to protect ourselves. Again, all this will be developed by, or be approved by, will be engineered and then approved by NPNR. One quick thing that was brought up in some of the other comments is, yes, there is a ridge that follows where the runway is, and there's drainage going both directions. We're aware of that. That's another reason why we have four quadrants, because we can treat each side of each drainage area, come up to that, and not be looking into different drainage areas. And so with that, I'll let Jay Freeman take it.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Freeman. I'm with Central States Water Resources. My address is 224 Quail Run Drive. I'm out of Pines, which is on the west side of St. Louis. So my company has been working with the developer. We are a registered private investor-owned utility company in the state of Missouri. We specialize in small distress systems, so a lot of times a sewer water system gets out of compliance, starts racking up notice violation. The PSC or Missouri DNR a lot of times will reach out to us and say, hey, can you guys look at this, acquire it, fix it up, bring it back into compliance. So that's kind of our what we do on a regular basis. We do own facilities in about 11 states currently, just shy, or just over 900 individual facilities altogether. As small as a lot of neighborhood facilities, similar to what's being proposed here, as small as 5, as large as 3,000 or 4,000 homes. So, and everywhere in between. In Missouri specifically, we currently own 79 systems, water and sewer throughout the state. We have one here in Cass County. We have some up north Kansas City, Sedalia, Lake of the Ozarks, Springfield, over by St. Louis, kind of spread all over the state. So as was mentioned before, the plan would be that if this is approved, we would submit an application to the Missouri Public Service Commission for us to acquire the facility. We would then have a CCN service area, with PSC. That area and the houses within the system would be our responsibility. On the sewer side, the water would be public, obviously. And with that comes a lot of requirements. There's a lot of back and forth. There's typically a hearing, a public hearing, before the Public Service Commission would grant us that application. So there's a long process there that has a lot of county public oversight into us being the utility of record for this new proposed facility. Beyond that, we will CSWR, Confluence Rivers, here locally would own and maintain the system. If there's any problems, if the state comes out and were to cite us for any violations, we'd be responsible for taking care of that and correcting any issues. And then we have local licensed wastewater operators to meet the requirements of DNR for that specific system type that would be responsible for the for the maintenance of the system, which for a system like this would typically be once a week. They would be required to actually come to the site and inspect everything, make sure everything's working, check out the pumps and those kind of things. Because we are regulated by the Missouri Public Service Commission, we can't just set rates, we can't just raise rates. All that has a very specific process that goes through the Missouri Public Service Commission, which is a pretty long and tedious process. Takes a year and a half to get fully through something like that. But with this system in particular being fully funded by the developers, that would not be something that would be anticipated for a very long time. The treatment system has been proposed, as was mentioned by Steve. It has to be approved by DNR. It's not something that the development group can just go and install. I do these all the time here in Missouri. It's a very tedious process, which starts with an anti-degradation, which is basically DNR comes out, they look at the type of system you're proposing, they look at the surrounding areas, the runoff, all those things, take into account, and then they write a report and say, okay, well, this would be a non-discharging system, so runoff to the creeks, which would then go to a river, then we get to a lake, and could potentially cause environmental harm to plant life and animals. That would not be something anticipated with this, but that is something that they would take into account. And included with that, they also do soil percolation tests, which is pretty common even with household systems. And so what that tells you is this is a preliminary presumed design, but depending on if the soil is capable of taking more or less liquid, then the number of lines, the area can either potentially shrink or it would have to get bigger. So that's something that they look at as well. The second part of that is once we get that report back, then we'll have to put together a facility report, which is we take DNR's initial findings, and then we say, okay, well, here's a little tighter crunch down system design of what we'd like to put in. And then we give that to them, they review that, comments back and forth a lot of times, and then they will give us a response, an official response to our facility report. And at that point, you do the final design and you put together a construction permit application where they do a final approval. So there are multiple steps in there where DNR, there's public notices, depending on response to public notices, there could be hearings. So there's a lot of different steps there between where we are at now and having a system approved and installed in the ground. The system that's being proposed is very simple, as has been alluded to several times. It's just an upscaled version of what a lot of people around here have for their homes already. But depending on what comes out during that approval process, they could require additional treatment, more than just settling. That's kind of up to DNR throughout that process. We've seen that go both ways. In addition, I'm here speaking about the sewer and my company's capability of maintaining, owning, and operating the system. But a system like this with available land could be expanded in the future, whether that is because of the potentially drain fields clogging or not working as efficiently. That could be expanded. It could also be expanded to provide additional treatment to where the water going into those drain fields is much cleaner than just a standard settling system. And then, I guess my last point would be that the way the calculations have been done right now, the initial design is actually higher than what we would typically see across the state as far as gallons used per home. So within the requirements of the county and DNR, there's buffer already built into that. There's additional capacity as well to if anything were to come up down the road. We typically install remote monitoring on all of our systems where it makes sense. So lift station pumps, there's a lot of different instruments that can be used to monitor. Depending on feedback from the state, pumps running, pumps failing, high water levels, different contaminants, all those kind of things can be designed in the system. So I think that's all I had.
What was the name of your company again, Jake?
Our overall company that I'm directly employed by is Central States Water Resources, CSWR for short. But our Missouri utility operating company is called Confluence Rivers.
There are documents in your handout with those.
Okay.
Like I said, even though we own, most of our facilities are in the southeast and southwest, from Missouri down. Like I said, we originated here in Missouri, and this is where the headquarters is at as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to make just a couple of closing remarks. I want to stress that this is not approval today for the air park to be developed. This is strictly for our community sewer system. It's not the final decision. We still need Missouri DNR approval, Public Service Commission approval. So this is just the first of several steps we could go through. The way we understand it, we'll have to do 3 additional applications to get full approval with 5 additional hearings. So plenty of opportunity for us to present our case for the air park, what it can do for the county with an increased tax base, with improvements in other areas, and we look forward to doing that and to address concerns that neighbors and Cass County residents have about aircraft, about fuel, about bird hazards, all those things. We're well prepared to make a very robust presentation when the time comes. But unfortunately, if we get this approval or this application disapproved, then we're at a dead end. We never get that opportunity to do that. So I just respectfully ask that you approve this first application. We see it as a door opening that allows us to go to other locked doors, and it's up to us to find the keys to open those doors. It's not a domino that falls and all the other dominoes fall right after it. Thank you for your time. We do appreciate this opportunity. Do you have any questions for us?
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak for or against application 3083? Please step forward. State your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Keith Croft. I live at 202 East on Atlantic District, Missouri. I live about 3,000 feet from this end of the runway. And I'm here just to talk a little bit about a safety concern that I've come up with recently. I want you guys to see it and try to understand what's going on. We've had a lot of airplanes flying around us at very low levels. On February 27th, we had a planning board meeting. At that planning board meeting, a number of people got up and spoke against the airplane. And at that time, the information was recorded. I went down to the building and got the minutes of the meeting to see who talked, where they lived, and what the discussions were all about. So I had a good understanding of what we were discussing. I was there at the meeting, I didn't take notes. On March 2nd, 4 days after the meeting, there was a complaint that we saw on Facebook, or maybe it was next door, just on social media, about a low-flying aircraft around Clover Hill. And since I've been dealing with low-flying aircrafts and noise complaints with the FAA recently because of this airport, I looked up on the apps to find an airplane that matched what was being talked about on Nextdoor. The first page shows you the flight pattern of this plane, leaving Johnson County Executive Airport, flying south, going around, crossing over 69, crossing Missouri, coming up around River Estates, then going up into Belton, around Richard Bow, back down. Then they do the figure eights, which was the complaint at Clover Hill, and then they circle back and go back to the airport. If you look in the middle, just to the north and let's say to the left side of the state, the little triangle, that's where the airport sits. So they are flying somewhere around the airport. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know who this plane is and what they're doing. The app does tell me who the plane is. It's November 5258 Yankee. So I know now the tail number of the plane. That's been one of our biggest complaints with the FAA is trying to get a hold of the tail numbers. The only way we can get the tail numbers according to them is to take a picture of the plane, which is very difficult to do when the planes are flying above you. So we are using these apps. We have the app. The second page kind of shows you where they're doing the figure eights over the Clover Hill. And off to the right-hand side, you can see there's a little plane there. That plane is actually at 1,800 feet elevation, or sorry, altitude. If you take into account the elevation of that location there, that plane is sitting at 800 feet above the ground. He's flying around. You can see when they're doing the crossovers there for the figure eight, that's right over Tubby's farm, where he's got all the fruits and whatnot there. And I thought that was kind of strange. Why are they targeting this area to do this kind of figure eight? Who is it that's doing the figure eights? And when I looked at the notes from the meeting and plotted the red dot there, as you see in that figure, that is one of the people that spoke out against the airport. On the next page, if you look at that page, I plotted everybody that spoke out against the airport on the trace. And you can see that that's one plane flew over all 12 people that spoke out against the airport 4 days after the discussion. When I got the meeting minutes, I was told that those minutes were not ready until the beginning of April. So where did this plane get the information from everybody that spoke out against the airport? The only place I can think of where they got it is somebody in the meeting that night recorded that information and gave it to this pilot. Or the pilot was actually sitting here somewhere in this room, and we don't know who that is. I did look up the airplane through the FAA. It's registered to a company in Oklahoma. I called them and said, who are you leasing this airplane to? They told me they leased it to Elite Aviation, and the plane is housed in Johnson County. So I know that it's basically a flight school that's flying this plane and doing a lot of buzzing around. Now, my safety concern is we should probably change the way we're doing these meetings so people don't announce their name and their address where they live. That information can get out. Someone can do something simple like I did and figure out where people live. The pilot must have done the same thing, figured out where people live and just flown around them. That's what I have to say. I can have other things that I can discuss about the plane if we want to hold up another time, so I'll do that. And we have planes flying over our house, less than 500 feet, that are blocked on these apps. And I'd like to discuss that at some point in time. I have videos so I can show you as well. So even though they say that they're going to be doing very nice things to the community, right now, I don't know who the pilots are because the airplanes are blocked, I can't get to them. We've talked to the FAA, they won't help us either. So how do we deal with this issue?
Thank you, Keith. Anyone else like to speak for or against application 3083? Please step forward. State your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name is Chrissy Efforts. My address is 500 West, 195th Street. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My family, we own a little over 1,100 acres of farmland, starting from 187, going all the way to 200 So we are opposed to having the Arrowhead Air Park because it would be right in the direct flight path where planes would be flying over our crops, soybeans, primarily wheat. And secondly, we are opposed due to the fact that down the line, if we decide to sell our land, that it would probably hinder future development or even selling. I think it's a great concept, but I don't think the people in Cass County would appreciate having this. They built homes, spent a lot of money to live out there in peace, and I think that if it was further out somewhere where there was not homes around it, I think it would be a great concept for those pilots. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christy. Anyone else like to speak for application 3083 for or against? Please step forward, state your name and address.
Afternoon, my name is Cole Kraus. I'm at 19025 Prospect, about 2 miles north of the proposed project. I don't know an awful lot about putting in septic systems. I don't know an awful lot about developing communities, but what I do know is dealing with asking for variances. As I'm a project manager for Burns and Dawn, I do this a lot with a lot of different AHJs. One requirement that is normally made of me and my team is presenting a full plan. And part of that full plan is what's in it for the city, county, potentially both, state, while I'm doing those presentations. I haven't seen that yet, right? And we are talking about septic system, primarily, right? Without knowing what's next. So the questions that have run through my mind while we've been presenting over the last few meetings is what's in it for us, right? And us being the, not just neighboring community, right, but also the overall county. I don't think we've heard that, right? We've heard what's not going to be our responsibility or what's not going to be county's responsibility. The part we have to look at on that one is it's not our responsibility today. You're saying it's not our responsibility tomorrow. What I get for it? I didn't get it, right? We're talking about disturbing an awful lot of land, right, on roads that aren't in the greatest condition, which is fine. We don't have great heavy traffic on it, right? But I run cattle up and down Prospect on a regular basis, and I know what that looks like bouncing my cattle trailer around. I know what that's going to do with our heavy equipment to be able to grade a site of that size. Again, I'm not a septic designer. I do some wastewater projects. Kind of rule number one there is it's got to be the right size. It's either too small or it's too big. Too big bag, right? And we've talked about it being expandable. That's a good sign. It doesn't necessarily mean that we can say that it's the right size and we don't know what the right plan is. Yes, we've talked to the estates, we've talked what might be apartments, what might be hangars. Let's make that definitive and then we can make some definitive decisions. Right.
Thank you, Cole. Anyone else would like to speak for application 3083? Do you all have the application number memorized yet? Just checking, because I think I've said it like 50 times today.
Jeremy McCracken, 19615 South Cable Road. It's my second time up here. Thank you for your time. I am a wastewater guy. I'm a licensed wastewater operator. It's been my industry for 20 years. I run 2 plants on Kansas side. And I can tell you that some of the things that have been set up here today about plant design are misleading. And I can tell you that some of the things that haven't been set up here today are intentionally misleading, right? So I haven't heard anything about loading. I haven't heard anything about permit values. I haven't heard anything about phosphorus, nitrate, runoff. I haven't heard anything about what the COD is going to be on the influent, right? Who's going to permit it, right? Who's going to pay for it? I know big business said they got our back. I've heard that before, right? I don't see it. Force mains are just as susceptible to I&I as gravity systems. I&I happens. You put a pipe in the ground, it's going to find its way into it. So to say, there won't be no I&I, hogwash. Where are the numbers? Where he can tell you flow. He can say, oh, we got 5 houses, 100 gallons times, we're going to have this much water. That doesn't tell you anything for wastewater. Wastewater is about keeping nutrients, and please forgive me, when I addressed you earlier, I thought the term BNR was for the type of process that they were proposing. I'm seeing now that they're talking more about natural resources, or natural resources, whatever, right? So a BNR process is what it takes to do plants like this, to do a community like this. He's alluded to the fact that it is just a bigger system than what you have in your current homes. That's an activated sludge system. Activated sludge is 1970s technology. I don't know why we would build something in 2020 with the 1970s technology. BNR is newer technology. It is something that could possibly work in an application like this. But to their point, you talked about monitoring, you talked about all of the other things that go along with it. It's a lot. One of the plants I run has an $8 million budget. The other plant that I run has a $2 million budget. We routinely go over budget because you cannot plan for the types of things that happen on these facilities. That's why they are most often entrusted to the county, to the local government, which is where it should be in this case. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Anyone else like to speak for application 3083? Please step forward, state your name.
I'm just gonna make a comment.
My name's Alan Francis. I live about a mile north of there, 18806 South Prospect. And I need to look at that drawing if you don't mind. These are conceptual views, correct? Correct? Conceptual. So there's nothing here that tells you the grade of the property, okay? This tells you the grade of the property right now. It falls off somewhere around 55 feet to this corner right here. Up in here, it's only falling off 25. On this side, it falls off somewhere around 30 to 35 feet. And up in here where this young lady lives across the street, it's about 25 feet. Now what I know is very little about a lot of airports, but I do know this, that they have to be flat, okay? And if I'm wrong, correct me. So I'm right. So gentlemen, you tell me how we're gonna move all this and make all this flat and work with your septic system, their septic system, that should say an airplane runs off into it, what happens in it? Where does the groundwater go that is already on the property? This is a spring fed, it already goes, okay? There's another one here. Tell me where the water is gonna go. If you guys can tell me that right now, hey, it'd be great. But this is conceptual. They have provided no grade plans. You don't know elevation, where it's going to be at, where that last layer of dirt's going to go. The people across the street have definite concerns. The people who live down the road and that creek feeds to have definite concerns. These people are all lining their pockets. Anybody for this today is lining their pockets in some way. We're not setting concrete pipe. You're setting grade with ditches. This isn't going to be a wastewater system with concrete pipe unless I've read something wrong. Have I? No.
Please address the commission.
Okay, I have not read it wrong. This is all ditches and leach systems. Now, if it's going to be a different grade, and they're going to have multiple grades, how are we going to move that material? Do we have pump stations? Because grinder pumps aren't going to move that far. You've got to do your homework with both of these. Conceptual, real. And look at what they're doing to us. These gentlemen, ladies, I understand good intentions, but it's behind This doesn't fit the community, for one thing. Trying to put 100 houses around 17 properties, plus the neighborhood. Everything is on 5 acres, minimum. Trailer houses have to be on 10 acres, minimum, if I'm not mistaken. We all had to do a perk test prior to doing any septic system. They haven't done a core sample. They haven't done any perk tests. They haven't set grade. Gentlemen, the cart's so far ahead of the horse, you cannot accept this. This is impossible to buy off on if you don't know the grade and what it's going to do to these people's property around. It's going to make the one property, 2 properties to the north of it, unsellable, undevelopable. You know, who is going to develop land next to an air park that is conceptual? And as far as we go to the conceptual part again, because he opened the door, this was supposed to be houses with hangars, okay? Now, he's opened the door to hangars with apartments. How do we know what we're going to get over here? There's not trailer houses. You tell me, because there's nothing here that tells me the size, nothing tells me what's going to fit on there. And this is all conceptual. The sewer system, their septic system is conceptual. It hasn't been approved by anybody. It is conceptual. This is real. You have to look at the facts, gentlemen. They have to cut the grade. We know that. To make it an air park, airport, whatever they want to call it. It's going to make the insurance around the area go up. It's going to make the property values go down. And when that happens, gentlemen, it comes back to you and to the county, because these people will want to have an adjustment in their appraisals, as well as I will. Again, conceptual, it doesn't show you anything. Real, it shows you everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Anyone else like to speak for or against application 3083?
Hi, my name is Chris Cox. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak today. I normally don't get to come to these meetings. I'm normally working during the day, as I have 2 young kids. They also go to Cambridge, where I grew up and went. I grew up in Cass County. I lived in Cass County my whole life. I love it here. I don't plan on leaving. I grew up about a mile and a half northeast of where the proposed location is. And right now I live about a mile southeast of where it is, off 205th and White Highway at 5905. My parents live off Trial Road, northeast of there, just north of where I'm at. They also oppose it. I can't imagine, I never would have imagined growing up that this would be proposed. There's a lot of great things that have been brought up today that I agree with. I can see there's maybe a good idea here. As a resident, I'm very concerned with the safety issue, whether it's the roads, the schools. Many people that I grew up and I still know in Cass County live in that area. A lot of great people, a lot of livestock. Buffalo Farms right across from there. I love that place. And I've kind of lost my thought. But I would like to say that I do oppose it. I am concerned. I do have some other issues, and I do think that most of my fellow residents have also already addressed those. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak for or against application 3083?
I'm Mark Gray, 4408 East 204th Street, there in Belton. I live about a mile and a quarter from where they're proposing this. I'm just like everybody else. I've got a creek that goes through my 30 acres. There is the runoff for this area here. I've got a couple of questions on it. I'm a little confused. You're gonna put in the largest airport in Cass County, but they're not gonna have a fuel station for it. I don't understand that. Does that mean that they're gonna come out and they're gonna hire a Volt truck to come out and fuel, say, 10 or 15 airplanes at one time? The reason I bring this up is my wife stays at home. She is out talking to the road guys when they come by. Now, they don't repave our roads. They touch them up because they don't have enough money to really maintain the roads. And so my question is, if they start doing all this work and they've got all these dump trucks and all these other big trucks out there, and they start breaking up the road like we showed you this morning, who's going to pay for that? Is our taxes going to go up for that reason? I just, you know, we don't have money for the roads right now. We don't even get them maintained the way that we need to see them maintained. And, you know, the guys come out and, yeah, they try to explain it away. We just don't have the money this year to do anything. So that's number one. Number two, they talk about 90-some new houses going in. Let's bring up the septic tanks again, or the whatever you want to call them. Each one of those has a motor. How many times, at least in my neighborhood this year, did we have brownouts so bad that you didn't even know the lights were on? So I'm sure Evergy, you know, if they get the green light to go, they're going to come in and put this big substation in and do all that kind of stuff. But my neighbors and I, we would like to see Evergy come in there and upgrade what we got, since we're the taxpayers, and not have these brownouts years, you know, every winter, and have our, well, my neighbor had his refrigerator go out, his dryer go out, and it's, you know, you hear about it all over the community. So, you know, I'm just looking and think that Evergy could upgrade us instead of put something new in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else would like to speak for or against application 3083? Please step forward.
This gentleman right there is talking about the grade of the land. On the northeast side, I'm assuming that's where his 55-foot slope was. I'm guessing it's anywhere from 45 to 60. But if there's even an inch of rain, it can come and go in the Worship down through there, go into the creek behind my house, go to Vanessa's pond, and on down the street, okay? The other thing I'd like to say is most of the houses out in there that I'm aware of, at least on the section across the road, a minimum of 10 acres, okay? So now then we're going to try to put in 94 complexes or whatever it is on 160 acres. To me, coming from the city, moving to the country 40 years ago, it's going to be intercity across the street for me. I don't care how new the houses are. So, food for thought.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for application 30834 or against? Please step forward, state your name.
Thank you, John Ryan. Just sitting here, it thought it occurred to me at home when we talked about property value. We talked about the money here. We talk about money for developers, business ventures, versus reduction of value for citizens. You got a developer coming in from out of our town, try to decrease the value through their business, increase the value of
Thank you. Anyone else have comments on application 3083?
I've got one more comment for you.
Please state your name before you make a comment.
Alan Francis, 18806 South Prospect.
Thank you.
Just a little fact. Their septic system, they've got it, I think, gauged at 43,000 gallons a day on a 1-inch rain on a, and I had it figured wrong last time, on a 40-foot runway, 40 by 40 by 3,000 foot runway. The runoff on a 1-inch rain, 74,000 gallons. Now that doesn't speak to their taxiways and anything else that they might have paid in that area. That is just going to add to groundwater and septic system.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else like to comment for application 3083? Please step forward, state your name. Last chance. Any comment from the commission? Questions for our staff?
Maybe just a couple of questions for you, Valerie, please. I don't want to be respectful of everybody's time here, so. Just to be clear, today the question before the commission is the sewer system and the sewer system going to the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. Is that correct or incorrect?
Yes, as well as the Public Service Commission.
Right. And if they disapprove it or veto it, then it essentially comes back to us at that point. Is that?
They would need to assess what it was denied for and see if it's the overall development that, or proposed plan development, if that would need to change in order to either fit their proposed regulations or in order to fit within our county ordinances.
And if they approve it, it comes back to us to deal with the entirety of the plan, the idea of the air park, the roads, all the concerns that have been raised today and at previous meetings. It still comes back to us.
Yes.
To give probably not even just a final approval, there'll be more than one opportunity for us to hear this again and to comment on all of these issues, whether it be the Mount Pleasant Road District and the conditions of the roads or anything else. Is that correct?
There will be preliminary plat hearings. There would be final plat hearings. There would also be additional conceptual and special use permit hearings for the runway itself if they decide to proceed down that road.
I ask these questions because I've been very sympathetic to the property owners, and I've been out there and I've driven my family around the property, and I can tell you my daughters are on the side of the property owners here. The issue that I have in terms of being someone who cares a lot about private property rights on both sides of this is at this stage of the game, it's really hard for me to in good conscience vote against a property owner from being able to explore what they can or cannot do with their land. When it's at this stage of the game, there's no harm being done to adjacent property owners. Is that correct? There's no infringement or harm being done to explore what's possible with the Missouri Department of Natural
They
Resources.
could go through this whole process and they could get shut down at the state level, which
Right.
then would alter
Everything.
everything from that point, or up to this point that they are looking at potentially doing.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
So the question being conceptual or actual, when they apply for that permit, and if you don't know the answer, that's fine, we can ask Mr. Wilcox, I presume. So they add the questions about the runoffs, the grade levels, the different falls on different properties, will that all be addressed with the DNR through that process?
It will be addressed with that, but also if we get to the process of the preliminary hearing plat, it will be addressed at our level at that point in time as well for stormwater runoff studies.
And a stormwater, I know we're talking about sewer, would be addressed through an engineer's study and proposal to the county at that time, if it gets through the DNR process even.
If they get through this process or to be their own private utility for the sewer system, it goes to DNR and Missouri Public Service Commission. If they should approve it, that is taken care of. That is permitted through the state. We do not get involved at that point in time. Where we will get involved with is if they decide to proceed with any type of splitting of that land in anything less than 20-acre tracts.
Yes, you answered it. Thank you, Valerie.
On the installment of them, are we gonna be inspecting the installment if this gets approved? If they get down that road and it, is our codes department inspectors inspecting the installment? Or does it come under DNR?
Of the system, it'll be under DNR.
So we don't even inspect it if they were to go.
We would look at the pipe when it breaks the foundation of the house.
Okay.
But if DNR approves the septic and the sewer, that doesn't mean that the air park or the neighborhood is approved.
Correct. This is just for them to be able to apply to be their own private utility. This has nothing to do with what it shows for different lots or sizes of anything like that. They could get to the DNR Missouri Public Service Commission. They could say, no, we would only permit a max of 40 houses in there. That's going to completely change what they have drawn out there.
If I wanted to buy land in Cass County and have my own place like these folks do and put an airstrip on it, if I'm a private pilot, there are already codes and zoning that tells me how I can and cannot do that. Is that correct? Can you just explain those really briefly?
Minimum lot size depending around on-site wastewater system in Cass County is 3 acres.
3 acres.
Depending on the soil morphology test, percolation test, if it would require a wastewater stabilization pond, it would require a minimum of 5 acres. If it is a grass strip, private, just for you and your smaller planes, we don't necessarily regulate that. Just for the simple fact that we have a lot of fertilizer pilots in the county. They fly out of their own homes that are there on their acreage. So we don't regulate that. If it was, you want to have it for you and you want to let 15 of your neighbors come through and use it as well, then yes, you would have to go through the same process as a conceptual special use permit to be heard by all local residents within 1,000 feet, as well as the planning board and the county or board of zoning adjustment.
Okay. But there are already several properties with private strips. I know there's one not too far
personal
from
private strips,
Right.
isn't it? It's my land, I'm the only one taking my crop duster or whatever it may be in and out, but it's.
There's not a neighborhood like this in existence in Cass County.
There is one that was done in the 70s, it's called Bishop's Landing. It is actually not completely built out yet over the years. The gentleman that developed it held on to a majority of those lots. It is a grass landing strip though, it is not hard surface, and it is only available for those that live within that development.
Okay.
Any other questions, Molly?
I have none.
Thank you.
So we're going to close the public comment question portion of this meeting. I will say I appreciate you coming out today because I do understand people have jobs and it's hard to get here at that time, and I understand that. However this vote goes, I'm not sure how these two gentlemen go. I understand there's several people in here, majority of them are against this. If it does pass, I would encourage the air park to reach out to these people to answer concerns, because I would agree too, I think sometimes you haven't gotten the full story on that. But in this process right here, we're looking at the sewer district portion of it. So I would ask that we be respectful wherever the vote is on this. I'm going to make a motion. We actually had the motion. All would be in favor of Resolution 3083. 3 votes for, against, 0. So application 3083 will move forward for the septic portion only. There will be plenty of other hearings, and we will try to conduct some of them in the evening so we can get everyone here. I want everyone's concerns. I understand what the majority of this room is, and I understand it. So I will ask that you be respectful. You do the questions. If you think of more questions, please let Valerie, our codes department, or the commission let us know on that. We'll get the answers as we go forward. I'm hoping when they get answers from DNR that they'll be open and share all that with everyone. So if we have more questions, we can answer that. But as this process goes on, like I said, we'll try to move some of the meetings to the evening so everyone else can get here during the regular time, and I understand that. Okay. Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Someone.
Second.
All in favor? 3 votes for, 0 against. We are adjourned. Thank you all.